Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first video on Seasoned Hobbies. My name's Will, and this channel is all about exploring new hobbies, diving into nature, and learning as we go. And I thought, what better way to start things than with some simple foraging. Foraging is such a rewarding hobby. It can be done all over the place, whether that's in an urban environment or far out in the countryside. Today, I'm going to be starting with something simple, blackberries. You can't go wrong with them. You can find them in abundance everywhere. From July throughout to late September, October, you can find blackberries in hedgerows, near lakes, near rivers. I'm going to be making some jam, some bread, and even some blackberry gin. So come along and join me as we pick some blackberries. Yesterday, I managed to get 1.4 kilograms of blackberries and turn them into some delicious blackberry jam. I'm just going to run you through the steps as how I turned them into jam. So to start with, I rinsed off all the blackberries and left them to soak for an hour or two. I then strained off all of that water and added them into a pot. From here, I added in a kilogram of sugar, the juice of a whole lemon, and I mashed that all up. I prefer to mash them up when it's cold because you avoid getting hot syrup splashed at you. It's just much safer and easier. Once it was all mashed into sort of a paste, I put that on the hob and set it on quite a low heat to get started. Once it starts to simmer, I turn the heat up and brought it up to a boil, and then I turn the heat back down and let it simmer for a while. Now the recipe that I'm going to link in the description says that this only takes 5-10 minutes. I found it takes 15-20 if you're doing it slower, but what I like to do is the technique of putting a plate in the freezer, putting a spoon in the syrup, putting a blob on the plate, and then you let it cool for a second or two, and you push it with your finger, and if you can see that it starts to wrinkle, your jam is ready. So, next step is where do you put that jam? You're going to need to get lots of jars, you're going to need to clean and sterilise them. I just did that by first washing them up, and then I put them in the oven at 120-100 for about 30 minutes. That's a step I like to do before I start to make the jam, and I just leave them there. Once I knew my jam was ready, I took it off the heat, I got all the jars out of the oven, and we started to ladle it in. This was a bit messy. I'd recommend a jam funnel, but I haven't found mine since I've moved property. And then once all of them are filled, just put the lids on and turn them while they're hot. This will help preserve them. To go alongside my jam, I really want to bake some bread. I've never baked a loaf of bread before and I feel like I'm missing out. So I found this recipe on BBC Good Food, also linked in the description, and I'm just going to give it a go. To start with, I need to mix the flour, yeast, and some salt in a bowl. Once that's done, you create a well in the middle, and then you mix in some oil and some water and mix it until combined. Once it's combined, you can take it out and knead it on a floured surface for about 10-12 minutes. And then once it forms into a nice ball and it's all smooth, you put it back into an oiled bowl and you let it prove for an hour. Once it's proved, you knock it back and then you put it onto your final baking sheet. You cover it again and you leave it for another hour. And then finally, you're ready to cut your line and bake your bread. I'm really happy with how my first loaf of bread turned out. It was absolutely delicious in combination with this blackberry jam. It was so easy to make. It was only about 20 minutes of actual work, and the rest of it was either leaving it to proof or leaving it to bake. And it turned out amazing. I'm really looking forward to trying new bread recipes in the future. After all my blackberry jam making, I still had some left over. So I turned it into blackberry gin. It's really easy to make. All you do is combine blackberries, sugar, and some cheap gin, and you leave it for about 4 weeks, and then you strain it all off, and that can be kept for as long as you want. Thank you for watching the very first video on Seasoned Hobbies. If you like what you've seen today, please consider subscribing to see future videos, and if you have any ideas for other videos, leave them in the comments below.